Have you heard of the word deuterium? Probably not. Wait till you watch this episode. It's going to blow you away, I promise you. As a matter of fact, you can see in this episode my general curiosity because this is a topic that I heard about a year ago. I'm going to be honest with you. I kind of blew it off as just another thing, that's coming into our world that really it's small potatoes. Well, I interviewed two doctor and a scientist doctor who is an immunologist whose name is on a lot of studies on deuterium. Yeah, it affects, and he believes is a cause of 75% of disease today. He's done a lot of studies on this, brilliant. But you're going to realize that this deuterium could be affecting you and your family in a huge way. And it's so easy to actually test and retest and to see what you're doing if it's actually working. Stay tuned for this episode of Cell TV.
Everyone, welcome to Cellular Healing TV. I'm Ashley Smith, and today we will learn all about the science behind deuterium and its role in health and disease. We will hear everything we need to know about deuterium, from what it is, from deuterium depletion and cellular energy production. We have two amazing doctors with us today from the Center of Deuterium Depletion, Dr. Q Collins, you can call him Dr. Q, and Dr. Ann Cooper. You will also see Dr. Pompa and Merily's results here live on the show, and you'll learn more about these testing resources that are accessible to all of you. So let's get started and welcome Drs. Q, Collins, and of course, Dr. Pompa to the show. This is Cellular Healing TV.
All right, welcome. This topic I have had just a fascination for, and admittedly, to you all before the show, I say I know very little about it. I think I interviewed Robert Slovak on Facebook Live, and that was the first that I brought this topic to my audience. But I would argue that they too know very little. Maybe they heard the word, but probably like me have a zillion questions. Okay, so I want to start here just very briefly. And then I want you to tell your story on how you even got into this. Okay, but why would someone need to be concerned about this deuterium and something that we all have in our bodies that we're exposed to? But new science is showing that this can lead to cancer, energy depletion, and a lot of other cellular problems. And this is Cellular Healing TV. So very briefly, and we'll expand upon this, why do we need to be concerned about this?
All right. Dan, our body is always trying to create homeostasis with whatever is going on. Deuterium is natural. It's an element. It's an atom. It's basically a larger hydrogen, larger and heavier. And our body is always trying to keep the right amounts in our body. But however, due to our environment and our lifestyles, in the last few decades, we are accumulating more deuterium that our body is designed to handle. We always have all these mechanisms in place to, deplete or to handle the proper amounts of elements or substances such as, potassium in our body. We are losing that ability because we have been overloaded with deuterium. The consequences of the overload, due to the size and heavier weight of deuterium, it actually makes water, and we are mostly made of water. And when the water is made more of deuterium, it becomes a heavier and larger molecule, the water. And as it gets into our cells, and since we are really talking about cellular energy and cellular health, it does have a very large impact and quite a deleterious biological impact on all of our systems, due to the fact that it's so large that once it gets inside our mitochondria, it can actually break the function of our cells from producing cellular energy.
Yeah. Which again affects detox, affects how fast you're aging or not. Obviously, it can cause bad cells, cancer. I mean, all of these things happen. Okay, so we're going to dive down, folks, because I know, like me, there's a zillion questions about just what you said, and that was a great intro. All right, how did y'all get into this? I mean, you have your own clinic. I mean, how did you find this? How long have you been into this? Give us a little history from you and this whole topic.
So I'm a clinical immunologist. I've been doing it for 35 years. I'm also one of the I guess, godfathers of the keto and keto diets for the cancer. So we got together about 4 years ago. I met our chief scientist, Laszlo Boros, at a meeting that I had in Florida called Metabolic Therapeutics, which is one of the largest meetings for keto heads, and the first meeting that was started about 4 years ago about applying keto therapeutics and keto to different diseases. And we had 5,000 people here last year in California. So it's one of the largest meetings in the country.
Dr. Dom is
Dom is,
right.
I started this out with Dom about almost 7-8 years ago when my wife developed a glioblastoma. And that's how I came into the realm of understanding about keto. And my wife was probably one of the first people on the planet that really used keto for cancer. And what we did was take everything from Dom's lab and all labs across the country. I opened a dog study where I tried all these different drugs and keto diets on dogs. And if it worked, it went into my wife. And she, with her glioblastoma, she lived for about 2 years, was given 5 weeks to live. We'll fast forward from there. I went to work for Quest Nutrition. And from there, I opened a 52-acre sanctuary for dogs with cancer. And lo and behold, we started using ketogenic diets and deuterium depleted water as a first step to do clinical trials in people. And that's when Dr. Boros came in with Dr. Sommelier in Hungary, who is one of the inventors of deuterium depletion. So unlike a lot of things, we've actually been doing this a total of about 30 years between the three of us, and we've published over 100 papers and treated over 12,000 patients and published 2 books. So I know it seems like a lot of people don't know, but within the academic community, we are the leaders, and a lot of people do know. We teach this at UCLA, we teach it in Washington, we teach it at Penn State, we teach it at a lot of universities now in the medical schools.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, despite your amazing efforts, if I asked 10 people right now on the street, they would look at me like, huh? Listen, if I asked 10 people about keto, they'd be like, I've heard of it. I just don't know what it is. So
it is crazy. You're so right. Matter of fact, keto, we have to always laugh when I tell Dr. Cooper, because nobody knew what keto was. And when I worked for Quest, they said, well, what do you want to do? I said, I want to make keto famous in 4 years. And 4 years now, it's now #1 search topic on Google. So so we're hoping that.
I said that about fasting in the 90s. And
oh, gosh.
I couldn't get anyone interested. Now, finally.
Yeah, I love fasting. I mean, I really do. It's a
fastest way into ketosis. But anyways, so, okay, let's give a little history here of, I mean, you said a lot of terms that people are going, wait, so what's good? A lot of deuterium depletion, deuterium depleted water, deuterium depletion. So give us a history about this. It sounds like it came out of Russia, but, give us a history of this and where we're at today.
Well, deuterium actually was used in the nuclear energy, or not a nuclear bomb industry. That's where it came from, making nuclear weapons. And that was with Russia, China. And if you find a lot of the places where deuterium depleted water is coming now from, it's from former facilities in the communist countries that had them. Then in the early 70s and 90s, Gaber helped with the Romanian Academy of Sciences. They built the first deuterium depleted water facility that had nothing to do with nuclear.
So they needed to deplete the deuterium out of the water for the nuclear facility. The
right.
process,
that's the thing that causes that bomb, right? The fusion.
Right. So is it safe to say then all water has some level of deuterium? Otherwise, we wouldn't be trying to deplete it of it.
Right.
Okay.
The average water has 155 parts per million. Okay. So for every million hydrogens, there are 155 deuterium.
Okay. All right. So some water obviously has a lot more than others.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and that depends. And it's really interesting that you asked that, because it depends on where it's taken. Water at the top of a mountain and the ice has lower amounts of deuterium. Waters in valleys and in oceans have higher amounts. Waters around the equator have higher amounts. Waters at the poles have lower amounts. And that's not only deuterium, that's deuterium also in the water, but also in the atmosphere, in the humidity. And so,
okay. So I would argue like this, okay, like heavy metals, right? We're always going to be exposed to some degree, right? And, you know, can't avoid it. Heavy metals are in the air, right? I mean, heavy metals are in food. I mean, if you analyze heavy metals on broccoli, there's going to be some level because it's in the soil. So the point is it's similar to that, like deuterium, meaning that the body, you know, if it's less, you know, if it's a normal amount, the body, a healthy body gets rid of it. Otherwise it could bioaccumulate.
well, actually, no. So deuterium is not a toxin. Deuterium is actually required for your body to actually operate properly, to form the right three-dimensional structures on things like the redox reactions and the hydrogens and the oxygens and the calcium. And it determines all those things. So what is the bad problem is once it gets too high, as Dr. Cooper said, it starts to be so heavy, it breaks your mitochondria, these things called nanomotors that make your ATP, and you stop being able to sleep and you get depressed and all these other things start to happen. But it's not like mercury or those things. It's not a toxin.
All right, great. Yeah. So just when it accumulates to a certain level, then it becomes a problem in the cell.
Yes.
Because you said it's heavy. Okay, great. That's a great answer right there. So now here's the next question. I think the logical question is well, what became the problem? Meaning that it's naturally in the environment. Our bodies function with a certain amount of it. Why all of a sudden are we bioaccumulating or having too much?
It's not really all of a sudden. It has accumulated in our bodies more and more over the last few decades. It has to do with...
Well, I mean, that's kind of all of a sudden.
Yeah, okay. But compared to our great-great-grandparents,
okay,
there's quite a bit of difference in the health status in the world. And a lot of it does have to do with the foods that we are consuming. There was really very low processed foods. There wasn't potato chips around for them to grab into at those days. Mostly it was, they ate naturally. And also there's always been stress in the world, but I think in the last few decades, particularly in the last decade, the technology and it's just a low grade chronic stress where people cannot relax as well as they used to. And it really is impeding their REM sleep. And REM sleep is a natural deuterium depletion method. And it's also accumulating in the atmosphere, what we're breathing. And the problem with it, once we get too much, it does, not only does it cause problems when it's in our system, but it does slow down our own natural mechanisms for removing it. Therefore, the more you're exposed to, the less you can get rid of, therefore the more you're exposed to. It's going in that kind of adverse downhill direction, and we need to switch that around. All
right. So doing a test to see where you are, that's kind of where I wanted to start. Matter of fact, let's share my test. Ashley will help us with that. And then you can kind of teach from that, you know, just to give people an idea. And I mean, obviously my viewers and listeners know, hey, I do all these biohacks. I've been eating a very, very healthy diet for a long time. However, I was still suboptimal despite my efforts. Not that I was making I was making no efforts to make my deuterium levels better. This was just me living, right? So I started with the test just to see where I was at. So that way I can say, okay, great. I'm going to do some things to try to deplete it. And then I can even bring on to a part 2 show. I love doing that, by the way, doing something and then, you know, doing a part 2. Okay. So walk us through the test, my results.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I see the breathy test.
And by the way, some people are just listening to the download, the audio. So try to play like it's radio too. Try to be as descriptive as you can.
Okay, so I've got breathy both times.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
So I see that your breath test is 141.8.
And by the way, we measured with the test. We did breath and we did saliva. Yes. So this is the breath portion.
Yes. And then the saliva component is, where am I reading? Oh, there it is. You're doing it for me. Thank you. Is 146.3. So we always look at the actual numbers, but what's also important is to be able to compare those two numbers to each other, because we want to know what your load is in your tissues. We also want to get an indication of well or unwell, your own natural mechanisms for removing deuterium are working. So we can compare those two numbers together.
Okay.
And we get a lot of information just with those two numbers. We call it the D factor. That's your ability to remove your own deuterium, which we have many mechanisms of doing.
And it kind of gives you a number on that as well, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so scroll down, Ashley, and then we can take a look at that. Okay, this is not what I was talking about. This is the ATP production factor.
So there is a relationship between your deuterium levels and your ATP production. As I explained before, it has an effect on your cellular energy production. And we do see those numbers change very, very well and rather quickly once we get people on a deuterium depletion program.
Okay, we're going to discuss that program, folks. But just so you know, greater than 51.3 is where you want to be, correct?
So yeah, when you really look at this, let's go. Here's what people, when you read this, and I'm glad you're bringing this up. We really use this as a baseline to see where people are, and what this shows for you. You're in pretty good shape. Now, what we do is look at a lot of other things, breathing, how you breathe, what you do every day, how you sleep, to see how we can get that better. But you're exactly right that you're in that range to where you're in that okay range, as long as you don't have cancer or metabolic disease. If there was something there, then we'd really put you on a program to try to get that lower, to get more energy, those reactions to start working, your cellular membranes to start working better. So that's how it starts.
And then, okay, scroll down again, Ashley. This is what we were talking about, the difference between the two numbers. You know, your ability to get rid of it. Is that what this number is?
Yes, and it's a measure. Again, just measuring saliva alone or urine alone is like a waste of time because it really doesn't tell you anything. What you want to know is from the breath, which is a marker for how much is in your tissue, how much is in your brain, how much is in your lungs. That's what this is. That's what the breath is for. So you want to know how much is your body's able to take in and how much is able to get out. And that's this percentage here. As you can see in yours, you have a very low, your ability to deplete is lower. However, we talked a little bit before you started, and you told me you use red light. Well, this is something that we know that's going to happen with red light because it tends to suppress, to get rid of what's in your tissues, but it doesn't get rid of it out of your body.
So red light, then, it alters this number, but is it good or bad for deuterium?
So it gets well, it's good because what it allows you to do, it allows less deuterium to be in your tissues, break the mitochondria, right? But what we'd have to do is to fix a couple of things about fixing. So now you can get rid of what extra stuff that's coming out, could get out of your body, so you would see even a lower saliva number.
I got it. So, right. So the red light, I do it, it moves it out of my tissue. But now we have to help it all the way out of the body or just take in less. Am I
correct?
Right? Okay.
That is it.
All right. Okay. So, and by the way, interestingly, we don't have time to show my wife's, but it was almost identical.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Two people eating the same food, living in the same house, living the same lifestyle. We both do red light. We both do the same things.
Yes.
So, and it tested very similar. Do you see that often? People that are living in the same house doing the same things?
Yes, we see it, and it's what's so amazing. We see that until there's something wrong with one of the spouses, and then if there's a difference, then we know that one of them, with the faulty or dysfunctional deuterium factor then we know that he or she most likely has some kind of metabolic dysfunction disease, and we get them to go to the doctor to find out what it is. We find this all the time, as a matter of fact. Okay,
so one of the things y'all provided for my viewers and listeners is a discount on being able to get the test done. So we'll put, Ashley will put up those links there, but how much is this test? And then I think they get 20% off of this, even if they want a consultation for someone to go over the result with them. Yeah, that way, they actually get something out of it. So how much is this test?
So the test for them is going to be about $260. And we're also going to put up the ability for them to be in a study where they can even get more off. so they can see how they can get better and to see what their deuterium levels are, and to use red light and all these other things to be like you. So that's what we'll offer that to them too.
Well, gosh,
and
to be like me, I wasn't very happy with my result, you know.
Well, it's not bad. It really isn't bad.
I'm like,
you've done a good job.
I'm still motivated to see how low I can get it, right? Okay, but we're going to talk about that. But let's talk about again how, you know, how this is affecting people, right? You know, where are their exposures outside of water? I mean, you know, talk about that, like where are their exposures and how are this affecting people, so people can look at their life and go, oh, okay, you know, that could be a problem.
We do know that GMOs makes things grow fast. It's loaded in deuterium. Children and teenagers do need deuterium to grow, but past a certain age, we don't need to be growing so much anymore. Generally, people grow out instead of up after a certain age, and it also, you know, encourages the growth of other things that we don't want. So GMOs are high in deuterium. Pretty much processed foods, they use deuterium to process those foods, and sugar. We eat so much sugar than way back, you know, great-grandparents.
What do you mean by they use deuterium to process those foods?
They use like the hydrogens are like, remember hydrogenated oils?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's deuterium. So
if you think about it, like Dr. Cooper is saying, when you use tap water, you're using water that has high levels of deuterium to make something. Therefore, the easiest things to come off of and recover are the heavy hydrogens, because the lighter ones float away. And so you're building this Frankenstein monster that has high levels of deuterium on it.
Yeah, and we don't drink ever. We don't drink tap water. We don't eat GMOs ever. That's right. Good. I mean, you know, even in a restaurant, I'm asking, where's this from? The corn, the soil. I mean, we eat no vegetable oil, soil, all these things that are high in those things. So, you know, that's. Well,
it's very difficult to find any it's almost impossible to find low deuterium depleted water on planet Earth anymore. So even
and that's where I was going next. Yeah. So in other words, we do all the food things. However, every bit of water is still high deuterium, correct?
Yeah. And not only that, but
that's my exposure. No
yes.
doubt.
Well, not only that, but not only are you got to remember, all the food that you're eating is exposed to high deuterium levels.
Yeah.
So that's not even the same as it used to be when our grandparents were coming up. So that's higher too.
And the foods are higher because, you know, explain that one more time for our listeners.
Yeah, the foods are higher because they're taking in they're using river water. They're using the rainwater is now higher. The humidity is higher. All these things, the farming principles don't allow, quote, quote, the plants to sleep like they used to sleep before. Because now instead of it going for a whole season, they can have corn growing for 6 weeks or chicken for 6 weeks that's full grown. So these things are not going through their cycles to get rid of their deuterium anymore.
Yeah, so basically the planet is not detoxing itself from deuterium levels, and therefore that ends up in our water, right? Glyphosate is in whatever it is, 70% of the water, even the rainfall, right? So, you know, that's a chemical. How much more that something natural would be in there that our environment controls, right? And so it's not able to control this. So these levels are building up in the environment and therefore our body.
Yeah, that's wonderful, because it's even global, or the climate change that we're seeing, that's also driven by hydrogens, the ratio between hydrogen and deuterium. So even that has to do with deuterium, because heat, the transfer of heat from the sun actually is a transfer from oxygen to the oxygen-hydrogen bond. So it's not CO2, but oxygen and hydrogen. And so as you get deuterium on it, deuterium can't transfer that energy, and therefore it starts to heat up the earth. So it is really connected.
Well, you know, we could have a whole global warming debate. You know, I feel like man has very little to do with it.
Oh, no.
Disagree with me out there, right?
I don't this is just what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
I don't care what the reason. It's simply that this is biology. This is the reason.
Yeah, no, exactly, right. Whether man has, that's still occurring regardless, right? Yeah, so I get that, and I agree with you on that. But okay, so interesting. Now, here's the other question I know people are thinking, because I asked this question. Well, I mean, can't we just filter our water out? We could not eat those foods and we could filter it out if it were only so easy. was what it was said to me.
It's a great thought, and it's really nice that people make an effort to try to make things better, but it just doesn't. You cannot, it's so small, you cannot filter out.
Yeah, so RO distillation doesn't even get it out.
No. Wow. I mean, you have to have it, you have to get it out enough for it to be therapeutically beneficial.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, distillation, the deuterium depleted water is made from distillation, but it's a $7 million distillation facility.
Yeah, right. So it's a process of like,
right, it's not the one we have in our house.
This tube or whatever that goes up like, I don't know how high, you can tell me, you know, and it's distilled with this like level because it's heavy, right? So they have to go really high. Am I right on that process?
Yes, yes, you're exactly right. And again, it's not the water, it's the food that has now been drinking the water. That's really the catch, it's the food.
Right.
So we also use the water in the beginning as pretty much maybe a good kickstart to get things going. But it's really not only about deuterium depleted water, because we really teach people how they can kick in their own natural mechanisms for removing it, how they can limit their intake, and how they can have a lifestyle that they can continue to do for the rest of their life. Once we've got them in a good position, that they really don't need us so much at all, even because they have these tools to manage their own deuterium levels, therefore their future.
Well, I like that it's testable, and the testing is very, very accurate. So let's say I did a test today, and then I did one tomorrow the next day. Where would my results, how close would they be?
It'd be the same.
Okay. So I love that. I love accurate. I love reproducibility in a test. And that's a great place to start. And then I also love the fact now that we could retest and see what we're doing isn't helping. I think that's very motivating. And then, but would I notice a difference? Do people get their levels down and go, oh my gosh, my cellular energy is so much better, my headaches are gone?
Dr. Pompa, like you, I'm a chiropractor. And the first thing that we learned the first day at chiropractic school was that we have our own innate intelligence. Therefore, as we are lowering our deuterium levels, our body is the one that makes the decisions on what needs to be repaired first. What's the most important priority?
By the way, that's what fasting is. Fasting, the body makes a decision. You know what? I'm going to repair this first, and then that, and this. So get that.
Therefore, your body is going to make the decision. So people do vary in their symptomatic relief. Sometimes you may have symptoms, but that energy your cellular energy may go to fixing what's causing the symptoms, or it may find something more important to fix. So people respond at their own level. However, having said that, almost most people that we work with within the first few weeks have reported to me, and I feel more energetic, big time. I feel more refreshed in the morning. I'm sleeping better. I don't need as much sleep. And cognition, people really report, and that they can read and write better and focus and think more clearly.
Right. And Dr. Q, I have to ask you this question, being an immunologist. I mean, you know, what effects do you see in studies on the immune system, which is a big deal today?
So all inflammation, we've published several papers, inflammation is related to deuterium levels. All these, the honing and of the immune factors, all the three-dimensional structure of all, once your deuterium levels are high, the three-dimensional structures of all your cytokines are changed, and therefore you start to see differences there. Oncogenes are turned on and off depending on your deuterium levels and ATP. All these things you already know, but you know, it's the foundation. It's simply the foundation of biology. It's highly effective, and that's important because you did segue to something really nice, and that is at the end of the day, our focus on cancer. While we can talk about energy, what's really neat is that while it makes normal cells gives them much more energy, it takes away the energy of cancer cells. So cancer cells need deuterium to grow, and without it, they're done.
And there's actually studies showing that the cancer cells need deuterium. I mean, obviously, you've been through every study almost, if not all.
We wrote most of them. So.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Or have you been involved in at least most of them? So,
but yes,
I mean, that's exciting. You know that. Okay, so what conditions, cancer being one of them, obviously, you know, is deuterium directly correlated to that? You think? Listen, the rise in cancer is absolutely affected to the rise in the deuterium levels. Do you believe that?
Well, we've published epidemiological papers that can show the higher place with higher amounts of deuterium, and your inability, that's where you've seen epidemiological studies have shown an increase in cancer in those places, like San Francisco, for instance.
There are other
And why,
studies like that, other conditions.
and why in Utah and Colorado, why the cancer rate is lower. You also have a lower deuterium level in Utah and Colorado because you guys are at higher levels.
Oh, so that's what it is. It's the elevation.
Yes.
Deuterium's too heavy to float that high.
But unfortunately, we're eating food that's grown where other people are eating food.
That's exactly a thing that we're not supposed to do.
So, you know, I mean, our spring water might be better if we got spring water from here, which we actually have a local source. But our air, it's less in our environment. But unfortunately, as you pointed out, most of it's probably coming from our food sources.
Yes. Very good. Very good.
All right. So what are some of the other conditions that the studies are supporting that are linked to high deuterium levels in the body? Cancer was one.
Cancer. We have, so again, anything that's a metabolic disorder is directly related to deuterium. So
diabetes, obviously.
Diabetes, cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's, premature aging. We're even working with the state of Ohio on the opioid crisis. So depression, anxiety, all papers have been published on all of these things. It's just, it really sounds like Windex, but it is at the base. Because it's just hydrogens. And we're 66% hydrogen. It's at the base of almost all metabolic disorders. If it's not genetic, there are some genetic disorders, but 99% of disorders are not genetic.
What percentage would you say deuterium is related? And I know you don't have an exact number. This is just your opinion, just not to step outside of clinical data.
No, that's here. I'm not afraid to say that if it's mitochondrial dysfunction, it's deuterium related. And there's very little doubt about that. So if you take the biggest scourges of of not only this country, but on the world, and you say 75% of those people die from these diseases, 75% die because the deuterium levels are too high.
Wow, I mean, that's just fascinating to me, right? And how easy is it? And we're moving into this next topic because I know my viewers are like, okay, what do I do, right? How easy is it to change that number on that test? And how long will it take for someone who's even worse than me to get in a safe range?
This is what people love to see, because generally within the first 4 to 6 weeks, they can come from a rather high range to close to or into the desired range. The deuterium depleted water really flushes out that deuterium to enable your body to work properly. So it happens quickly.
So the deuterium depleted water acts like a magnet, a chelator, or how does it work like that?
This is how I explain it. If your car engine were to end up with very thick, gluggy oil in it, your motor can't go. You can't get anywhere. So you would pour thin oil into it. So essentially, you're full of this deuterium, heavy water. You're going to put low deuterium water in to flush out that heavy water.
All right, I like the oil analogy.
Yeah, men like that.
So good for my women then. I thought that was good for everybody. Women are going,
I know. Shame on you.
My dad taught me mechanics early on, so I'm in. But yeah, the guys really get that one.
All right, so you have enough of the bad, and you're putting in new, and it's going to be new after a period of time.
And then it's like going to the gym. You go and you gain your muscle. You don't want to stop. You want to maintain those levels for enough time to allow your body to kick in its own natural mechanisms. You're going to accumulate more energy. The relationship between deuterium and ATP production, ATP energy is going to go up. So now your body can kick in its own natural detox mechanisms better. It's going to be able to extract nutrients from your food better. You're going to be able to function as you did when you were younger. The longer you maintain these deuterium levels, until you get to a point where we can start weaning people off the deuterium depleted water. And by doing all these other modules, we call them lifestyle factors, the more we encourage people, or the more motivated people to get these other factors, they can let go of the water and just get tested once a year and then determine what they need to do or not.
Okay, yeah, so well, let's talk about all of the things that we need to do. Like if we had okay, here's the program. You already started this, right? You already said get rid of all like, processed food, GMOs. I'm going to make the argument. I mean, most of my listeners are probably going, yeah, well, I've done that, right? But that's where you start, right? That's where you start. And then what?
So it's your listeners are going to laugh because it's everything you already know. Sleeping better. Again, less stress, proper exercise, learning how to breathe correctly. Now everybody's always used these words, but what we're able to do is quantify what you need to do. So we teach you, we look at how long you can hold your breath as a measure of how much oxygen you have in your tissue. How much oxygen you have in your tissues directly related to your ability to bleed deuterium out of those tissues, because oxygen binds with deuterium to make heavy water and get it out of your body. Sleep, the same way. We can look at your sleep and see if you're REM and deep sleep, fix those, that starts to remove it. Matter of fact, just people doing deuterium depleted water, and a couple of our little modules, their sleep starts fixing itself. So we have people that were insomniacs, that can't sleep, that have sleep apnea, that reverse that without doing anything. It's deuterium related, it's not a physical thing. So
the water helps. And of course, my viewers and listeners right now are going, well, how do I get this water? Where do I get it at? And that's a problem because, I mean, it's not cheap to produce this water. Am I right? And then it becomes, well, I can't drink all of my water from that because, I don't have enough space in my house.
No, that's good. Here's what we tell people, and I thank you for that question. Again, deuterium depleted water is an easy way, a great band-aid to get down. Most people don't need to spend the expense of using deuterium depleted water. Okay. We can show them how to get up, how to breathe, when to go in the sun, all those things you already teach people, but we can put it to an exact science, right? That's what we offer, to use these different tests to say, this is when you need to do it, this one it works for your body. We can look at your cholesterol and say your cholesterol is deuterated. Let's get your cholesterol, get the deuterium out of your cholesterol, and therefore now you can make vitamin D, you can make estrogen, you make testosterone, you make bile, all these things that you couldn't do before. So yes, the deuterium depleted water is available. Quite personally, I think it's really important for people with cancer and metabolic disorders first, and secondarily as a hack, great, use it for a little while, but only use it for a little while because you don't want to set your body up to where it's dependent on the water and you're not doing the right things to fix yourself.
All right, well, and I appreciate that answer because again, my viewers were like, I can't afford to buy deuterium bio. Okay, so it's a good place to start. If you have an illness, definitely a good place to start. But all of these other things really matter most. So again,
we actually make this deuterium depleted metabolic water in our cells given the right circumstances. So we are teaching people that eventually, you'll be making this deuterium depleted water where you won't be so thirsty. You won't even have the need to drink, your higher levels of deuterium depleted water because you're going to make more of your own.
Right. Okay. So now here's the thing, right? So name some other biohacks, right? Red light therapy, you said, is a really good way. What about, there's different types, right? There's red, there's near infrared, there's far infrared. Do studies show which one's better for this?
So we do a lot of studies. We know the red light, we know sound, combination of two. There's vibrational energies. All these things travel through water. And that's what, as you know, it travels through water. And that viscosity of the water is changed by the level of deuterium that's in it. And that's really just the way to think of it. Oh. It really is. When Ann says thick, gluggy oil, that's not a bad way of thinking about this. It's just not as thick and gluggy, but it really is thicker, and that little bit keeps those light rays from getting into your skin and getting onto your receptors and getting to your gut like they should be able to getting to your brain so your brain can operate better. So indeed,
we are vibrational energy. And you don't want to slow that resonance down. You want to raise it up so you can resonate at a higher level. And you can do that because sound and light moves via a frequency, a resonance. And if it's bumping into deuterium, it's going to fragment that and break it down. So as we lower your deuterium, you benefit so much better from all of these other biohacking methods because it can not impede it.
Okay. So what would you say for someone like me to lower my deuterium levels? Because my viewers and listeners are people like me. What would you say? Yeah, here's what you need to do. Because I mean, my REM sleep, I measure my sleep, my deep sleep, right? I mean, I get well over 2 hours a night on REM sleep. I can prove that in a second, but I have my little thing. I get a lot of deep sleep. You know, I average probably 2 hours a night in deep sleep. And then I even get more REM sleep. So, okay, that's good, but yet my levels still weren't perfect, right? I do red light every day. I'm out in the sun a lot. I mean, I purposely do that. I exercise. I don't eat processed foods. What do you tell me?
So I think the first thing we'd probably start with you is breathing, is learning to seeing how you breathe, how long, what is your oxygen content of your cells, of your muscles.
I mean, when I compare myself, my son can hold his breath for 3 to 5 minutes at times, right? If he does like breaths first, he can go longer, but just off the cold, I can only hold my breath for maybe a minute and a half.
Yeah, and it's even, and that's interesting because, yeah, but when we talk about breath holds, we're talking about on exhale. So that's the big difference is you want to get it all, what you're trying to do is get it all out, and then how long you can hold your breath on the exhale.
Oh, I've never tried that. I always breathe in and hold my breath.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's so needed. It's not measuring lung capacity, but your ability of what's left in your tissues after it's gone.
Yeah.
And so really, that's what we start working on first.
So what's a good number there to exhale?
So if you look at this, we try a good number is 45 seconds. Anything lower than 45 seconds, like most cancer patients can only hold their breath for 10 seconds, almost like hyperventilating diabetes patients, obese patients. And if you can get up to a minute and over a minute, that's where we see our professional athletes and our Olympic gold medalists. We had 6 Olympic gold medals last year, or last Olympics. And so they use this as a true biohack at the top of athletics.
So okay, so let's talk about that. You said on me, breathing would be a big deal, a big addition. What about hyperbaric?
Hyperbaric oxygen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so both ozone and hyperbaric oxygen do actually help remove deuterium because, again, it forces oxygen into you. It's better on hyperbaric oxygen therapy at atmospheres that are greater than 1.9 or 2 atmospheres.
Yeah, which makes a problem because those machines aren't as affordable.
Yeah, I mean, it really, there's no doubt about it. But what we use it for, we use it different than most people. Again, I think we wrote a paper some time ago on ketogenics and hyperbaric oxygen therapy, showing how that worked and how intermittent fasting works with it. That's what Dominic.
Well, go ahead.
But so what you can use that for is to get rid of it in your tissue. And then with deuterium depletion, you don't feed in the bad stuff anymore. So you don't have to do hyperbaric oxygen for 13 and 14 sessions because you just use it almost like IV water to get the stuff out of you because the oxygen binds it. And now you're able to now lower that 5 or 6 points and make it easier to get below 130.
So with the water, you can kind of get a jump on it to your point before, right? No matter what you do, then apply all these things. Okay, are there any other tips right now that like this is how you get rid of it?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we've actually set up is we're starting, to tell you guys, we've started a new portal, which we call metabolism, which takes all these markers that you have for mitochondrial dysfunction, and patients or clients can actually follow where those mitochondrial markers are. And so we use a Fitbit watch to track how much time you've been walking and your resting heart rate, your HRV, and we can actually adjust those, even getting your differences between, you sleep great. Now, pretty soon the question is how low is your resting heart rate while you sleep versus your resting heart rate while you're up. Those are things that change in this modern society that we're actually after there to know how to make that greater, that part bigger, right? And therefore your sleep is not only more sleep, but more restorative sleep. That's for one of the, so sleep, it's really when, it's biohacking is great, but you have to know what you know of how it works. So we look at things like that. So we work on your resting heart rate. We work on your heart rate variability. We work on skin integrity. We work on gut. When you talk about gut everybody talking about how the gut works. Bacteria take deuterium out of your body. That's what they're for. And so we work with a lot of Crohn's disease and IBS patients because the problem is they can't, their gut's not stable. They can't remove deuterium from their body, and that's why they get this illness for so long.
Interesting. What percentage of the population you see the tests come in, are normal, absolutely spot on normal?
Very few. And really,
yeah,
go ahead.
It's very few, as Dr. Cooper said, but that's probably, let me make sure we tell, because our people are skewed, right? The people that really come to us because they know something's wrong.
I would argue a lot of your people are probably in the red zone, right? Because
yes. I mean, it's just amazing. We can't say this is a diagnostic test, but there's not a day that doesn't go by where we don't get a test in and have to write one of those letters that say, go see your physician immediately. We can't tell you something's wrong, but they need to tell you.
Wow, but it's that accurate. And when
accurate.
Yeah, and what level on that? You said to me that it's the breath that matters most. What level would you be like concerned and tell someone to go see their doctor?
Well, in a vacuum, we would say things that are over 150 that we start to worry, especially as they get, we have patients that come in over 155, which shouldn't exist.
Okay,
right?
Wow.
But at the same time, once you start to look at a whole clinical history, it can actually be lower than that because you have got to see what else is going on. It's really, we've gotten it past an art because we've done so many patients, but it's not just as simple as people think it is who haven't done it before.
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure we say, Dr. Pompa, about the breathing. Yes, cancer patients, in fact, a lot of them have trouble getting to 6 seconds, but I see a lot of patients who start out at 12 seconds, and it does not mean they're a cancer patient.
Okay.
So that all of your clients don't go and measure their breath hold and get worried. But it does mean that they really are very low oxygen content in their body, and they probably have some metabolic dysfunction.
All right. I rarely do this, but I'm going to do this today. I want Ashley to come back on because I want her to ask a couple questions that are on her mind right now. I'm so intrigued that I really, oftentimes I leave a show like this regretting that I didn't ask that question, or my viewers will say, gosh, I wish you'd asked this. So Ashley, there's so many questions here. I feel like I'm missing them because my brain is processing. Ashley, would you have questions about this?
I'm the same way because for me, this is also new as well. And I didn't take a test, but I'm curious when you would think somebody does need to take a test, or do you think it's pretty much appropriate for everybody?
This is yours.
I think that my feeling is that everybody should have their deuterium levels tested because it's going to give them more power over how they're going to deal with their life. And having deuterium, once you manage your deuterium levels, frankly, all of your other markers may change. So I would rather test deuterium levels first, get that under control, and then do a lot of the other tests. Because I was doing, a lot of testing, functional medicine doctor doing a lot of gut testing, thyroid testing, hormonal testing. And I don't do that anymore because once I learned about deuterium, I really did feel like I was still working upstream. My whole goal has always been try to find out the best way to approach these patients and try to find the best way to get them better. And so many people have so many different things going wrong that we end up testing all over the map. Forget it. I just test their deuterium levels. I give their body the opportunity for their own innate intelligence to kick back in, fix a lot of things, and then I can come in and see what else your body has really not been able, it's so damaged that it needs a little bit of assistance rectifying.
And Ashley, you can re-explain what they've given our viewers, 20% off the test. You'll put the links in, right?
Yeah, I'll definitely put the links here. There's a few different tests as well as the study that people can volunteer to be a part of as well, which is a really cool opportunity. So yeah, I might actually do that myself.
And they'll also be able to measure the water and the food. So whatever they want to do.
Yeah, that's right. The water. I mean, I guess like the water you drink for sure, right? I mean, I can test even the spring water that we get versus my RO water that I have. And then, food? I mean, is it the food you eat every day all the time? Is that the one you'd measure, just random?
Yeah.
We have some people who just love to eat certain thing and they just want to know. You know, I mean, you're not going to obviously test every food you eat. It's
Yeah, that was my point. Yeah.
We've got some people who would just love this certain shake or something, and the powder or whatever they use, and they don't want to give it up, and we'll test it, and then they'll make their own decision. Maybe it's not worth it.
It also,
make sure I get the other test, because if we do another show on this, which we will, because I'll retest my things, Ash, I want to know what my levels are, and we'll share that. So.
oh, definitely. And it's the same way you can use a food test. You're asking how to test if one type of, like a place that you get beef or fish from is lower in one place than another place. So it's really quite convenient. So it may sound silly, but there are differences that we measure difference in cattle, for instance, that have a difference of 15 parts per million in the cattle. So you're eating cattle with high deuterium levels is not good for you. It's like, don't do it. But you think you're doing well.
Are kids' levels generally lower than adults?
No. Because children, as I said, and teenagers need deuterium to grow. I've actually also used this for women trying to get pregnant, having difficulty getting pregnant, very successfully. And but we do watch the mum's deuterium levels, because she needs enough deuterium to pass on for her fetus to grow properly. But also, past a certain age, under a certain age, your children are using that deuterium to replicate and grow.
And it's, again, just so people understand, it's a heavier hydrogen, right? That's how your body can actually utilize this. Is there a supplement that you have discovered helps this?
So we're working on not per se a supplement. We know that most we wrote a couple of papers now. We know that most medications, for instance, like metformin and berberine, that they actually act by helping to deplete deuterium. That's really what they work. Yeah, that's really what they do. So we actually discovered that one of the what's the one for Gleevec? We published a paper 2 years ago about Gleevec, the miracle CLL, miracle drug for chronic leukemia. And we found out, after they've been charging $10,000 per treatment, that it was simply a combination of Lipitor and metformin. So they were busted. And that was, they simply both act, they have nothing to do with genetics. They have nothing to do with being able to make something on and off in your gene. They simply remove deuterium and work through metabolism.
But obviously there's much safer ways to deplete this.
Oh, yes. Yeah. That is just it. But what I was just saying, all these things that they try to say is magic about these medicines.
Right. I got your point. Yeah. What about molecular hydrogen? These new molecular hydrogens.
So the molecular hydrogen is an interesting thing. It is what you put in, right? So if you make this molecular hydrogen from the way they make it, depending on the ones we've tested, don't lower. They have the same amount of deuterium in them as tap water. The tablets do. So that's not, and they don't lower anything. But there may be some out there that are better. But the 3 or 4 we've measured, they all measured anywhere from 145 to 153 parts per million of hydrogen. Same as water.
Also, as a herbalist, I've always loved to use herbs. They're natural, God-given green plants. But then I've had to really rethink about how these herbs were processed or where they were processed. If they're processed in a place with really high levels of deuterium in the water, I have to rethink it. And, eventually all of these companies, as they learn about this, in order to keep in the game, in order to say they have really high quality products, they need to get their products tested. And this is the way it's going to go.
Yeah, I was just thinking, we test like every herb, everything for heavy metals, right? Yes. Which is a toxin, but deuterium not being a toxin, we need to test for, just because there's the levels.
The impact it can have.
Yeah, and as I answer, and it's important that we actually do this for a lot of different people, including the FDA. And so right now the FDA and the toxicology department there is actually using deuterium depletion as one of the factors for their safety studies. And so that study is going on right now that we're helping with, and we're hopeful that what they're trying to get to is saying, if this allows your deuterium to go up and hurt your metabolic pathway, that drug can't pass a phase 1 safety study. And we're hopeful that ends up happening. But they're testing it right now.
Do you think this will hit the mainstream? To
5 years. 5 years.
Wow.
There's no doubt about it, because this is a paradigm. Scientists and medicine, all they want is science. Can you prove it? Yes, we can. And more importantly, our cancer patients are getting such better clinical outcomes doing this with standard of care. Doesn't make a difference. Their results are so much better. We're getting anywhere from 8 to 10 years of their mean of extra life on stage 4 patients. So it's changing cancer already. I mean, it's changing big time. And as I said, we've already had 2 clinical trials on cancer in Europe. We're going to have one here for cancer, for both glioblastoma and chronic leukocytic leukemia. So we're very excited. But we think once you handle cancer and the things we're understanding about sleep and depression and all these things that are coming out of our studies, it's going to affect everything, because it makes it work better. It makes insurance cheaper, because you can keep people well. And that's really what we need to do in this country.
Dr. Q has actually encouraged a lot of our cancer patients who the second time around, they've already been through the standard of care and they're concerned. He's encouraged them. Yes, you're going to go through this again. You're going to do all this. We're just going to make you a much stronger, robust person so that you can get through this without all of that. And we have many people call me telling me, and it's my second time. I have no chemo brain. I have no fatigue. I'm at work. People tell me I look great. So it's nice news for people who are so concerned or worried or just, I don't want to ever go through this again. That they can throw everything at it and come out with much better outcome without feeling miserable.
Wow. Actually,
I just love it because they have patience at the end of all of this.
What did I miss, Ash? This is such an amazing topic.
Yeah, it really is. I really think you hit it all. I was going to ask about children and if you thought that they should be tested, and you answered that. And do you feel like a whole family should be tested, or do you maybe start with the parents or start with the children?
Yeah, I mean, when we look at it, so we've tested entire families. And again, it's so interesting why your spouses are different, are the same. Your children are completely different than you are, because they hold on to this stuff. They use it for a reason. No matter what, they use it. So we really try to say, when we think, we know there's a lot of more chronic illnesses in younger children. And so 10 years ago, I would have said no, but now you've got to be even upfront and proactive with younger children, because they're being destroyed. They really are. There's such simple fixes, and that's what's so amazing. There's such simple fixes.
Would there be different levels for testing kids because they use more? No?
Well, yeah. Well, so it's that safety. We still, when you look at that test, we still try to get them below 130. But we don't try to drop them into the 118 and 116 and 112 level. Right. But we keep them below 130. They turn on. It's amazing. They lose weight. Most parents love us because they become easier. Their discipline gets better. They're not moody teenagers.
They do better in school. Their cognition and focus improves.
Yeah, so it's great.
That's nice.
Fascinating topic. I feel like I think I heard this word a year ago. I mean, I know you've been in it far longer than that, but just to show you, though, of how, and it's, I'm hearing more and more of it, but still, we need to get the word out about something.
Sharing it.
Well, I appreciate it, because it's you guys that are leaders in this that are going to help people understand, and that's all we're here for.
Yeah, I want to do a part 2. I want to remeasure. I want to look at my water. We'll take it to another level. Ashley will get hers done.
Yes.
Let's look
all
at
your clients send in their questions, what they feel else they want to know.
Great.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, exactly. I think we'll get a lot of questions. Share this show, folks, as best you can. People need to know this information, and ask some questions, and Ashley will forward them on to you all. Because again, I want everyone to know everything. There's so much here. It's such a new topic, but such an important topic. So thank you for bringing this information. Thank you for offering the test at a discount for our viewers and listeners. And let's keep getting the word out.
Well, thank you guys very much. You guys keep being the warriors that you are. We appreciate it.
Great questions. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. No, I loved it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Well, that's it for this week. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. This episode was brought to you by Cyto Detox. Please check it out at buycytonow.com.
We'll be back next week and every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern. We truly appreciate your support. You can always find us at cellularhealing.tv, and please remember to spread the love by liking, subscribing, giving an iTunes review, and sharing the show with anyone you think may benefit from the information heard here. And as always, thanks for listening.